they were targeting Westerners or Western interests, then yes. So if you take Dan Kleidman's account of Harold Coe's criteria as a representative, and we personally have no way of verifying it, but if you take that as the norm, then maybe there is a strong vetting process in place.
But I interviewed numerous people who participated in these meetings, and one of the things that I heard over and over again was that there was this kind of inexorable momentum toward killing, and that the military people in these meetings could speak with a kind of a tone of do or die urgency. In fact, two of the people who I quote in my book used exactly the same metaphor to describe that sense of momentum that was very difficult to resist. It was like standing on the train track with a train hurtling toward them at 100 miles an hour.
Now then I guess, like, the important question for me is, like, how often do they say no?
Well,
the answer had been 99 times yes and 1 time no, or 50 times yes and 50 times no?
Yeah.
How many no's are there?
well, look, I'd say I did not come across many examples.
But he did tell us about this one instance.
This was a meeting between the top lawyer at the Defense Department, a man named Jay Johnson, and the top lawyer at the State Department, who was then
Harold Coe.
Harold Coe.
And according to Dan's sources, Harold Coe and Jay Johnson were faced with determining the fate of a 40-year-old man, roughly 40, named...
Sheikh Mukhtar Robo. I think that's the right way to say his name. I'm not sure.
He was a member of the Somali group Al-Shabaab. And for context,
News World Cup celebrations have turned to tragedy in the Central African nation of Uganda.
a few months before this conversation, this is in 2010, Al-Shabaab bombed a rugby club and a restaurant at the same time in Uganda, killing 74 people.
Broken chairs, smashed tables, and the sounds of pain as rescuers search for the living and the dead.
So that had just happened. And according to Dan Kleidman, at this moment in intelligence circles, there was a debate raging as to whether Al-Shabaab should or should not be considered an associated force.
At the time, their leader had sworn allegiance to Osama bin Laden, but their agenda was primarily a local agenda. They had never struck out against the United States or against American interests in the region.
So you've got the top lawyer at the State Department and the top lawyer at the Pentagon facing off as to whether this fellow Robo from Al-Shabaab should live or die.
Now, how does this work? Does somebody just, did someone pound the table?
Yes, this was a very heated meeting. Jay Johnson argued vehemently that Robo was covered under the AUMF.
He was, after all, a founding member of Al-Shabaab.
Harold Coe vehemently disagreed. Harold Coe's conclusion, based on the evidence and the intelligence that he saw,
was that Robo was not externally focused. In fact, he belonged to a faction of Al-Shabaab
that was arguing against attacking the United States and other Western interests.
So according to Kleidman, these two men went back and forth until eventually Harold Coe just drew a hard line and essentially said,
look, if you do this, you need to know that you will be doing it over the unambiguous objections of the State Department's legal advisor.
The unambiguous move.
And that's very strong language coming from a lawyer. And the signal that it sent to the White House was, you will be taking military action, even though the top lawyer at the State Department has said that this would be an illegal action.
Okay, so what happened? Did they decide not to?
They did not do it.
This is not academic. It's lives depend on which way the decision goes.
By the George Lucas Educational Foundation, creator of Edutopia, celebrating 25 years of showcasing what works in K-12 education. Learn more at edutopia.org.
This election season, everything is heightened. Like there's more